Alright lads and lasses, welcome along Last video, Dataset 6, video games. Now then, we're going to talk about something in this one that's really close to me heart. It's a big topic in my mind, it's really key, it's really important for you to understand and see and think through this. And it's going to be something that's going to really affect what you do day to day with Power BI and as you start to go forward in your journeys. So as you know, last week we went through and did these DAX measures. Let me just get out of the way a little bit Right, we wrote, tell you what, in fact, like, let's get rid of my face You didn't want to see this ugly mug, do you? Right, so we went through and we looked at some of these, we wrote these down and we got a really good picture in a way that we were able to start to build some quite impressive visuals, I think, given that it's, quite easy what we went through. The next thing that we're going to tackle is, this is a big topic. Now then, KPIs. Everywhere I've been, all the jobs I've done, somebody wants KPIs in there. Gotta have KPIs in, gotta have KPIs in. Now, there's some changes coming to the platform in August that are going to make some differences to the KPIs. So we will revisit this later, but the main issue with KPIs is that there's some real cons around them. They do lead to bias and they lead to you being, well, what you measure is what's done. So don't be surprised if your KPIs you start making green. Oh, everything's green, the business is great, when actually your business isn't great. So you've got to think through your KPIs. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Is this something that's going to show us that we're actually doing good, which is the point of a KPI, isn't it? We want to know, are we as a business doing dead good? And are our customers going to be dead happy, right? If you get that wrong, you'll be getting your KPIs are all green, everyone's looking like, oh, we're fantastic, we're bonuses, boss, and all that, and yet your business is going down the toilet. So have a think on that, because it's really important that we get it right with KPIs. Right, tell you what, let's get back into a demo and let's have a look at what I mean. Right, back with this. KPIs. So we've got our data here, You can see I've built it up. You've got a lovely little table, little chart, little table, and I've got the average scores here. So we've got the average critic score and the average user score. Now, I'm going to multiply the user score by 10 so that it's in the right order of magnitude. But if we look at this data now, right, straight away you can see, just looking at the data there, that if you look at electronic arts, for example, the average critic score is 74.4, well, 74.5 be what it would be once we do the rounding, won't it? Right, 74.5. And we're saying, well, the average critic score overall is, well, it's going to be 69. Woo! Right, 69. So that's like above. So, hey, we're dead good. Right, but then I look at the user score, and that's 7.04. Well, that's going to be 70.4, which is below what's going to be 71. So, on the one hand, the critic scores are dead good, but the user scores are bad. So, it would be good to be able to reflect that and see within this table who is good, who is bad. Good versus bad. Oh, I'm sure there's a film in there, something good or evil. Oh, right? But we're going through this and we're getting it, right? But the core thing here is understanding what looks good and what looks bad. And it's to be able to shape so we can understand, hey, my business is doing well, my business is doing badly. And then over time, we should be able to look and see how we're performing against our KPIs. So in year one, are we good, are we bad? Year two, is it getting better or is it getting worse? Those are important things. Those trends are vital to business. That's a really core part of what we do here. So let's move forward with it, right? I'll go through, we'll do the build, right? And then it'll all make sense for you, yeah? So we'll go in, I'm just going to cut and paste them in, and then we'll come back in a minute, yeah? Do that. Pause the video, get the measures written, and we can carry on. Job's a good one. Champion. Alright, so as if by magic, it's all done. Magic of television. It's brilliant, isn't it? You've got to love this stuff. What I've done, first off, I've written all versions of these measures, yeah? So these are going to be all. No matter what happens, these are always going to stay the same. So if we pick a year along here, you see these will stay the same, yeah? All, right? That's going to be one main target, yeah? Our target score is this, right? Then we're going to say, for each of these will be able to change. So if I pick on a particular year, hopefully we'll see the numbers will change for it. So if we pick, there we can see, so we can see they're different. And we can see the drag and drop that I've pulled and the average measure that I've written. I'll tell you what, let's get rid of me face, man. Honestly, you just didn't need to see me face. Oh. Right? The average measure that I've written here, so we've got the average user score, just here, just average, multiplied it by 10. I've got the same for the critic score, just obviously without the multiplied by 10. And then we've got the all versions, which are just removing any filters on the video games table. So I want them to always just give me everything on that table against every row, right? That works really well, especially for doing this kind of thing. And what I've done is I've left in the drag and drop versions so you can just validate that the measures are the same. Yeah, we're all happy. Job's a good one. What I'm going to do now then, since we're all happy and job's a good one, is let's get rid of the drag and drop ones, all right? So I'll get rid of that, and I'll get rid of that, and why didn't I call that AVG? Oh man, it's going to be one of them days, isn't it? AVG. Right, so we've got average user score, average critic score, I've got that. Now, as I said, I need to understand, is it good or is it bad? And then we need to be able to work out, how do we know what it is? So there's a few ways we can do it, yeah? If we go back to a PowerPoint, we can have a check. Let's talk through some of the options, yeah? So let's say, you can do it with conditional formatting, and we'll show you how you'll do it with conditional formatting, or we can do it with a switch statement. Now, a switch statement can give you a little bit more flexibility with it. There's some other options as well. And as I say, what's coming in August, in fact might actually already be out now, is there is a KPI builder that's going into the tabular editor, right? So keep an eye out for that. But for now, I'll show you the conditional formatting, and then we might have a try at doing a switch one, see if we can do it in a simple way, yeah? Alright, so to put KPIs in, it's not difficult, not rocket science, right? I've pre-written them, so I'm just going to copy and paste them in, aye? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need a tolerance measure, alright? So a new measure, I'm just going to paste this in. What we're saying is we want it to be within 1, so 1 percentage point effectively, or 1, well, it's going to be a percentage really, isn't it? Because they're like, I think these are scores out of 100, I'd hope they are, but you know, looking at the scores, 1 sounds reasonable, doesn't it? I think so. We're saying 1 for the tolerance for that. So for the critic one, let's just get that put in. Right, drag the right window. Here we can. Again on the KPIs, create a new measure, paste that, and let's have a look at what we've done here. Right, it looks a lot more complex than it is. So I've got an all value and a test value, right? The all value is of course the overall average, and the test value is where whatever the measure is going to be calculated at this point, depending on filters and stuff like that. So we'd get like a yearly average or anything else that we wanted to do, right? What we're then doing is we're putting in something around the tolerance. So we're adding the tolerance to the value, or we're removing the tolerance. Looking at it, you might want to do it the other way. You might want to put it on the all values. Either way, you'll get the same result though. Effectively, what you want to come back with is your 3 KPI states. So -1 for it's below, 1 for it's above, and a 0 for it's, well, it's within that tolerance window, isn't it? Right? And that's then going to become what we're going to do the conditional formatting on. Let's get the last one in, and then we can show you how that all works. All right. So the user KPI, new measure, let's paste that in there. Job's a good one in it, right? So I've now got my KPI Critic and my KPI User, right? That's absolutely perfect. That's all we needed. So let us see, if we start with the Critic one, if we click on the little arrow here, we can put in conditional formatting. I'm just going to put in icons, right? And you can see you've got a choice of icons that you might want to put in. All right, traffic lighty, ticky boxy, whatever you want. All right, let's keep it nice and simple. How about we put it here, right? Tick exclamation mark cross. Dead easy, isn't it? This like, and let's put it down. Pick the KPI, and we're going to base it on the field, the KPI Critic field, and it's going to apply this to just the values because we don't want to put this on totals or anything like that, do we? And in this case, it's going to be is, because if you remember, we've set these to have 3 values. So it's going to be a number, and the number for bad is going to be -1. Retish, it's going to be 0, and woohoo, it's going to be 1. Yeah. So we'll do that, and we can click OK. And you see, straight away it puts that in there for us. Right. Let's put a bit more of a divide in there. You know, this is where it gets always tricky, isn't it, with these KPIs? You can put it on the other side, but either way, you kind of get to the point that you want to kind of have that differentiator for it. You could remove the values, but I'll leave the values in for now because I think it's important to be able to see the two together. Right, let's do the user scores as well. So conditional formatting, icons again, KPI, and we're going to pick the KPI user. And if we remember, it's the number, and it's going to be is -1, 0, 1, and let us put that back to what ticks. It resets. So I always forget it's going to reset it all. It's a good job it doesn't take too long to do these, isn't it? I've heard rumour the new way is going to be quicker. Right, but now I've got that in there straight away, so we can see, all right, what's going on. Now this would be useful for me, wouldn't it? Because I'd be able to see who's doing badly. Yeah, so if my business was down here and I was in charge of Big Ben Interactive, I might be a little bit worried. You know, we're not doing too good. You know, maybe that's why there's only 13 games from them. But this really is the way that you can start to move forward. You've got companies like here, this Idea Factory, who the customers seem to really like what they're doing, and the critics are a bit like, oh, I'm not so sure on that, right? This is kind of great. This is what you want for KPIs, and this is the risk factor, isn't it? So if I was in charge of a game studio, who would I look at? What score would I look at? Would I be looking at the critic scores, or would I be looking at the user scores, or should I be trying to look at something in between, or a combination of the two? What does good look like? And that's kind of key. This is one of those things that you really do need to understand, because as you're moving forward and as you're progressing in your Power BI development, you're going to need to start to think, what do we need to present? So it wouldn't be fair to my bosses or to anybody like that to be saying, in this case, you're not doing good. It's going to need to be that combination of the two, isn't it? And there's probably going to be other factors as well, because I'm sure if we copied this, and this again, you know, I keep telling you, man, do Power BI right and it becomes portable. So we've just copied that table. So we've got a second copy, but let's get rid of that. Yeah, because one of the things we might want to put on here is, instead of looking at the publisher, if we look at the platform, how does that change things? Now all of a sudden we can actually start to look at the two together. So we could say PS4. We can see over time how many PS4 games have been, but we'd also be able to start to see actually who's scoring what across the board with the PS4 games. We could do the same for the Wii U. We could do the same for the Xbox 360. It's all there, and that portability and being able to combine those KPI scores in such a way that we can actually really see what's happening across the board is where the power of KPIs comes through. Now, this has been a pretty quick demo of it, and I'm sure we're going to come back, and KPIs are now, from the work we did with some of the earlier data sets I'm not even going to mention anymore, KPIs are really going to shape what people see. But what you want to be getting to, and this is where the value really comes from a KPI, is that we stop showing the number, right? Because the number actually starts to become what drives things. So you don't want to be showing the number if what you want to be doing is just showing the icon only. Because really, if I show a number, then the mindset that people have is, oh, I need to do something about it. I need to do, and they'll fixate on the number. Whereas the business value is in understanding, right, Game Boy, well, it's a bit long time ago, that, isn't it? You know, but in saying, right, in 2014, these were the platforms, Xbox 360, I'm sorry, Microsoft, Xbox 360, it's red. What do we need to do to turn that round? That's the conversation we're having. You know, PS3, it's red. What do we need to do to turn that round? Right? One of the things, words of wisdom, right? And this is, I think, really important. If you take nothing else from today but this, right? Please, please, please remember this, right? My words of wisdom about KPIs, right? If you do not understand or know what the actions to carry out in the event your KPI goes amber, right, you need to question, is it a valid KPI? Right? I genuinely 100% believe if you do not understand a KPI, it is a danger to your business. Amber is when things are going wrong and we need to do something. We need to know what that is, right? What does that amber mean to me, to my business, right? It might be something there's nothing you can do about. You know, it might be the price, the global price of oil is going down, right? That's going to have an impact on my business, right? There might not be anything you can do to affect the global price of oil, but you will know my sales team need to be aware. There are things we need to do. Do we need to be cutting back on our stock orders that we're going to, so we don't end up with a surplus of stock, right? Do we need to be banning overtime maybe? That, you know, there are things that you need to be aware of that you're going to need to do, right? If you're saying, I'm going to clue, mate, got amber, not my problem. Your KPI's doing nothing but just being there and someone's looking at it. And if they're looking at it and they don't know what it means, you kind of got a problem. So come back, right? Revisit and assess where you're putting in KPIs. And if you do not, and there is nobody in the business who knows what happens on an amber or what an amber should trigger, man, you know, give your head a scratch and think, you know, maybe we need to do something different. Anyway, right? That's been Dataset 6. I've loved doing it. I've finally got to write a bit of DAX, right? And that's honestly when I get into, you know, getting the DAX in, getting the, you know, how can we do this, make it better, right? I love it. Dataset 7 starting next week, right? It's going to be a cracker. We're looking at KPIs again. The other thing we're looking at is how to support KPIs, right? And I'm planning to use the new KPI stuff from Tabular Editor. So let's have a look at that, right? And we'll come back to this KPI discussion, right? But please have a go. Download the dataset from Kaggle. Please don't forget to go down, like and subscribe. You know, I'm still starting out with this YouTube malarkey. I'm enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it too. You know, we're getting, you know, we're moving forward. That's the important thing, isn't it? So come back. See you next week.